Hello and welcome. Cowherd's still out, so I'm joined today by Fox Sports Radio host Doug Gottlieb, longtime NBA veteran Jim Jackson, and former NFL player and scout Bucky Brooks. Let's start in Tampa Bay, where reportedly the Bucs owners will stick with Dirk Koetter as head coach, despite the recent reports that momentum was building for John Gruden to return to the team, which he led to a Super Bowl championship in 2002. The Bucs under Koetter drastically underperformed expectations this season, but it now appears the Glazer family has decided to stick with Dirk Koetter. Look, there were competing stories just in the last few hours. There was early in the day, there's the story like it looks like John Gruden's going to go back to Tampa Bay. And then here in the last hour or so, boom, the Glazer family, according to the Tampa Bay Times, and Adam Schefter's retweeted it, they've committed to Dirk Koetter. I think they've made the right move. I think that John Gruden is glitz and glamour and perhaps, sounds great on TV. But Dirk Koetter, I think, deserves another chance to work with Jameis Winston and this offense. I've seen some things in the last few weeks that I really like.
As we close the books on 2017, John Gruden was the head coach for a short period of time at UCLA, then Tennessee, now the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. still a little bit of time left. Cowboys? Cowboys. You want to step up here for a couple hours? Look, I kind of think this is the smart thing, but because you don't want more different verbiage. You don't want a different voice in Jameis's ear. They got all kinds of issues. Jameis is an issue. He has to play better. Right. But they need better personnel. They need a better defense. They may need better leadership. And it doesn't mean you even have to fire. You can go hire somebody. Look at what Jacksonville did. It's copycat league, right? Mm-hmm. And so instead of trying to copy Sean McVay and hire a young offensive coordinator as a head coach and then go get an old defensive coordinator, why not hire Jacksonville? They had a quarterback issue. They're like, Doug Marrone, he works well here with Bortles. He's kind of got a plan. Let's put in Tom Coughlin, who can help stabilize and legitimize this organization. I think that might be a better plan than throwing a completely new playbook and new ideas at Jameis Winston.
The thing that I would worry about if John Gruden comes with Jameis Winston, he's never really worked with a young quarterback. His system is better suited for veteran players. Rich Gannon, Brad Johnson, on and on and on. I thought it would be disastrous if you put him with a very emotional quarterback like Jameis Winston. I would just think it would be combustible on the sideline. Give Jameis another opportunity to work with Dirk Koetter. They got to fix the defense and do some things where they can figure out how to best utilize the pieces. But I think they're close. It's just not reflected in a one-loss total.
So what you're talking about is being able to have consistency within the organization and not bringing another voice. And I think from my perspective, being an announcer too on TV, you look a lot smarter being on TV in a coaching position like John Gruden because he says all the right things. He does all the right things. He has the persona. But then again, do you want to go back to what it was when he left Tampa? That's the thing about it and the question about it. And I love the fact that Tampa wants to be consistent with being who they are. They're not far from the playoffs. Not far at all. Why change it now? Why change it? You're going to get a big splash right away because of Gruden, but long term, does that solve some of the problems that you want to have?
When I look at Jameis Winston, his biggest problem has been holding on to the football. I don't know if John Gruden fixes that. Maybe super glue fixes that or something. But again, I look at this and wonder if there hasn't been a shell game being played. If you listen to John Gruden all year on ESPN on Monday Night Football, he has sounded angry. He's dissatisfied with the game. But he's also, if you look at the business of ESPN and them asking broadcasters to take pay cuts, well, how do you stop them from making you take a pay cut? Well, this team wants to hire me. This team wants to hire me. I'll go here. So within the last few hours, we hear, yep, it sounds like Gruden's going to Tampa. I believe Gruden may have told Tampa no, and then they went immediately to Koetter and said, you're coming back.
So you're against the broadcaster turned coach then?
No, I'm not. It's great for me. Because I look smarter.
This is personal for Doug.
No, because I know you had the opportunity with Oklahoma State.
Well, I didn't have the opportunity. If I had the opportunity, I'd be sitting right here.
But I'm just saying,
You're getting ready for a ball game.
It's been that way in regards to, and I made the example about Tony Romo. Tony Romo wasn't considered a highly intelligent quarterback at times, but you listen to him on TV, you think Tony is the smartest guy on earth. and it makes him look good. That's the same thing with John Gruden in regards to what I was talking about and why he's so coveted, not only in NFL, but also in college.
Yeah, but I mean, look, he won with the Raiders. He did win with Tampa. Granted, Tony Dungy kind of laid the frame. I understand, but he did win with, they stopped winning once Gruden left. Callahan, got it to the finish line, got him to the Super Bowl, and then the whole thing was a house of cards.
Talking about, got you. Yeah,
huh? Oakland.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, but in Oakland, when he left, it was a house of cards. So I do think, look, at some point, though, Bucky, and you can answer this, when do they stop calling, right? Because like Bill Cowherd, they've stopped calling.
See,
Jimmy Johnson, they stopped calling.
They're always going to call because he's in a primetime spot. He's on Monday Night Football. Everyone sees him. And there's no accountability when he says things. He doesn't have to get a one-loss record on TV. I think at some point, they will eventually stop. But as long as he's around the game and talking and then doing the quarterback school and all the things, he is touching so many different people that he's always going to be a popular
I think
coach
they
to bring
stop
in.
calling when they wise up and figure out that he's playing a game, that he really doesn't plan to come back to coach. He plans on being paid a lot of money to sound smart on TV.
I don't know. Do you go back to Green Bay or do you go to Dallas? I think those jobs are good.
Hi guys, Colin Cowherd here. Before the show moves along, I wanted to tell you that Speak for Yourself is brought to you by Freshly. Freshly delivers fully cooked, prepared meals straight to your door. No more coming home, wondering what's for dinner, because Freshly's team of chefs and nutritionists are here to save the day. Skip the shopping, chopping, and cleanup. Boom, it's yours. They're fully cooked. All you have to do, heat them up. Each meal ready in only 3 minutes. Delivery and takeout, hit and miss. You know that. Sometimes it comes cold. Why run the risk? How about guaranteed quality meals from Freshly? Easy, no dishes to worry about. Freshly's menu has it all. Sicilian-style chicken parm, Mediterranean shrimp bowl, sweet and sour chicken. These meals are restaurant quality. To try Freshly out, go to freshly.com/Fox Sports to get $20 off your first week. That's 6 meals for just $39 plus free shipping. This offer is only valid for a limited time. Go to freshly.com/Fox Sports. $20 off, free shipping. That's pretty good. Consider dinner done with Freshly. Now let's get back to the show.
To Pittsburgh, where the Steelers can still lock up home field advantage Sunday if they win and New England loses, but the team actually appears to be conceding the AFC's top seed to the Patriots, with Pittsburgh offensive lineman Marcus Gilbert saying they plan to rest Big Ben and Le'Veon Bell against the Browns. And neither guy practiced today. I don't like conceding. You concede in a friendly round of golf, I'll give you that putt, but where else in sports?
Unless you got money on it. Unless you got money. You got to put out. You got to put out. You got to put out.
Where else in sports do you concede? And look, the Patriots can be a little rocky, and, the Jets, the Patriots are playing the Jets, and the Jets under Todd Bowles have not conceded to anybody and given everybody trouble. I think it's a mistake. I think you want to keep that edge and keep the grind going. I don't like this look. I don't like them conceding the number 1 seed.
Do you remember how they did in the playoffs when Le'Veon Bell was hurt a couple years ago?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember how they did when Ben Roethlisberger was hurt? Like, what is the the risk far outweighs the reward. And I mean, look at Le'Veon Bell. They don't have Ryan Shazier. They're not going to have Ryan Shazier. They might have Antonio Brown. If they lose one of those other cats, it's over. It's a wrap. You put them in bubble wrap. I would even let them leave the training room until they play in the playoffs.
They're playing the Browns. I would throw them out there at least for the
first half. Those Browns are going to play hard. Those guys are playing for jobs.
You're saying the second guys can't beat the Browns? For my Steelers. And for my, you saying concede, it was conceded when we lost to New England, when we didn't finish the game. That's where we should have really.
Out there. He was at
I speak French. I'm a Steeler fan, but my thing is, I really believe this team this year feels that they can beat New England in New England. That's part of the thought process.
They got no choice but to think that now.
I'm saying after the game, you go back and you look at how they lost the game. A lot of it was on them. It was, New England drove down at the end and scored. But a lot of it was internal mistakes that they made. And I really think this Steeler team feels healthy. When healthy, they can go into Foxborough, an AFC Championship game, and win it. So why risk losing somebody.
Don't. Why would you?
Against Cleveland when you know New England has this thing wrapped up.
Well, I mean, I think that's the big thing. They want to get into the playoffs and tournament fully healthy. They want to have all their weapons. You have AB, you have 26-7. They have a chance to knock off anybody, any place, anywhere. And I think also the way the matchups are breaking down, I think they'll get a chance to play Kansas City in the divisional round. They're good with that matchup. I think they don't want to necessarily match up with Jacksonville because we saw what Jacksonville did with them. I think this is a little similar to what the Cleveland Cavaliers did in basketball. Sometimes you're just trying to set your path of least resistance. Maybe there is more in play than just sitting out there.
I hadn't thought about that. They have certainly dominated the Kansas City Chiefs and owned them, and that would be a better path. But again, show me where it's good to back off the gas. I just don't believe in that, particularly for a Pittsburgh team, to me, that has some emotional issues.
Just look at the Raiders last year. Remember, Mark Davis is screaming down, why is he in the game when Derek Carr's in the game late, they're up 19 points, and he gets hurt. Like, there's no reward. Beating the Cleveland Browns, who cares? If you don't have Ben Roethlisberger and you don't have Le'Veon Bell, you don't have a chance, period.
If somehow the Jets beat the Patriots, would you be making this argument? There's no reward. There would be a reward. You wouldn't have to go to Foxborough. And there is a chance the Jets can beat the Patriots. It's maybe not the greatest chance. But, again, you can't tell me their path wouldn't be better if it was in Pittsburgh.
I'm just asking you honestly, okay? If you're the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, do you play Big Ben? Do you play Le'Veon Bell?
Yeah, I play him for about a half until I get – again, I would do him like I did the Houston Texans, dominate him early.
Le'Veon Bell got hit on the knee, what was it, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and everyone held their collective breath. I would not. Would you play them?
No, I wouldn't run the risk. I want to make sure I have all my bullets going into the
And this is why you're intelligent and you sitting right here instead of being the head coach of my Pittsburgh Steelers because of that. Because of that kind of decision you want to make.
All right, welcome back. Doug Gottlieb, Bucky Brooks, and Jason McIntyre back. Let's move to Seattle, where the Seahawks have had a roller coaster December that saw them fighting fans, calling out each other, but still pulling out a huge win in Dallas last week. Russell Wilson has been carrying this team all year, but even he's had his ups and downs, which got people asking Pete Carroll if Russ may actually be trying to do too much.
It was really unfortunate. Last week it was 3rd and 5, when we were there and there was an opportunity to make first down, and I know he was thinking he might be able to escape to run for it, and before you know it, he's going in the wrong direction and he got in trouble. Those are huge plays, and he's more likely to make the positive ones than he is to have those plays happen, but it has happened a couple times, and they've been big problems for the field position and all that for us. So we talked to him about it, but encouraged the heck out of him to create for the positive, and he's been remarkable at it over the years. So every once in a while you got to give up a little bit to get some, I think.
I think it's fair, accurate, and appropriate criticism of Russell Wilson. There are times when you watch Russell Wilson, and he's like a great crap shooter that goes on a roll, and all the little crazy things he does turn into big plays. And then there are other times where you're like, hey, dude, man, just line up 2nd and 8. Why did you just make it 2nd and 17? And why? And so I think Pete Carroll has appropriately told Russell Wilson, and again, I think this inconsistency of trying to do too much is why he won't win the MVP this year and may never be an MVP caliber player. His play's not consistent enough.
I think this is the dilemma that coaches have when you think about a mobile playmaker at the quarterback position, and why most of the guys that coach mobile playmakers are defensive coaches. Offensive guys like to control the script. They basically like to play the video game, and they want the quarterback to be the joystick. Russell Wilson likes to improvise. He goes off on his own, and sometimes those negative plays throw your offense off schedule. What Pete Carroll is just trying to get him to understand, there's a time and a place when you need to step out and be Superman. But there are other situations where we just need you to kind of keep the offense on the track. If he can find that delicate balance, they certainly can be a more effective offense, but I can't blame Russell for playing the way he's played. With that offensive line, he's asked to do more than any quarterback is asked to do in Nashville.
I think that's the big question, right? Like, if they make the playoffs, they don't make the playoffs, it doesn't really matter. This is not a team that's going to win in the playoffs. As much as they found ways to overcome adversity, and they were down 40-0 at home to the Rams, that's who they really are. I think the big question is when they get help around him. if they can ever get a running game again, offensive line, will he still be running around, or will he ever buy into the idea of, like you said, keep it on time?
Oh, Whitlock, I'm very surprised by this, actually. We talked about Russell Wilson being an MVP candidate.
Yeah.
And then he has 2 shaky weeks a little bit, and all of a sudden we're just going to criticize him. I got to wonder. I don't know if you guys saw the report on Monday Morning Quarterback this week from Albert Breer. He said it would not surprise people if Pete Carroll up and retired at the end of the season. Is this the kind of statement from somebody who's just going to go out guns blazing? Hey, I'm just going to take a shot. I thought it was a shot, Bucky. I don't know about you. It felt like a shot at Russell Wilson. Hey, man, we've got one last shot to get in. If it doesn't work out, I'm out of here.
Where was the shot? What did he say?
Listen, you can't criticize a guy after basically 14 weeks of running for his life behind that terrible line, no running game.
He said more often than not he makes that play, but sometimes
it's a criticism. He's saying he's trying to do too much.
But there's a difference between a criticism and a shot, isn't there?
There he is, but you know, that's semantical play with words. But Jason, my pushback would be is that Pete Carroll, I guarantee you, is reflecting the overall thought in that locker room.
Oh, the locker room, yeah.
No, it's a defensive team. And the defensive coordinator, the defensive coaches, the defensive players, like, you know how we win games, Russ? We know you got a bad offensive line. But we're going to play field position football, and then we're going to create a turnover and shorten the field for you, and that's how you're going to score points with this bad offensive line. Yeah. But when you put us in 2nd and 17 and back us up, we're no longer playing field position. We're no longer playing to our strength. And so they said, look what we just did to the Cowboys. We just embarrassed them with this Legion of Boom that everybody says is washed up. And so what Pete Carroll is saying this week coming up, and if we happen to get into the playoffs, Russ, we're going to rely on the Legion of Boom.
Would it be okay if Russell Wilson said, okay, Pete, that's fine. By the way, we have 36 touchdowns. I've accounted for 35 of them.
No, it's fine, but I think this even speaks to a bigger point. When that article came out and they talked about they felt like the defensive guys, Seth Wickersham's article, the defensive guys felt like Russ had always been let off the hook. They never coached him. This is the first time in my memory that I can think Pete Carroll went to a podium and said, hey, Russ needs to do something better. He may actually ingratiate himself to the locker room by saying, hey, he's coaching number 3 because he never does that.
And to further that point, he hasn't been critical of any of the defensive players or any of their actions, you know, right? When he had guys trying to go into the stands, he actually supported them. So this is the first time he's been critical, not just of Russell, but of anybody this year, even when they acted like clowns in Jacksonville.
He wasn't critical of the defense when they gave up 5 million yards to Todd Gurley, right? Nice job.
All right, welcome back to the show. Doug Gottlieb and Jim Jackson are back. We're joined now by the founder of the big lead, Jason McIntyre. Let's move to Boston, where the Rockets blew a 26-point lead and lost to the Celtics in dramatic fashion last night, with James Harden being called for 2 inexcusable offensive fouls in the final seconds. Not surprisingly, Harden was unhappy after the game, but not about his own decision-making.
First of all, I want to know, how do you only have 2 officials on a national TV game? That's the first question. But a lot of grabbing, a lot of holding. I mean, when am I supposed to, how else am I supposed to get open? The guy has 2 arms wrapped around my whole body. But like I said in the first statement, you know, it's just tough. You can't have 2 officials in a professional game. There's a lot of no calls that need to be called because that changes the dynamic of the game. You know, then you got fast break points, no calls, turnovers, or whatever the case may be. But it's a professional game, national TV. Can't happen.
Doug, I watched you this morning on the Herd, and you went at Harden pretty good. And I think I kind of agree with you in terms of there's something different about James Harden. Just the whole beard thing and just the covering up of your face. The fact that he blamed a poor season on dating Khloe Kardashian. There's something, great player who Kevin McHale absolutely trashed in the Hall of Fame. There's something about Harden that the spotlight, I think, does something to. And he doesn't, you know, when we start to clutch Gene and we threw it on LeBron, this may be the guy that struggles when the spotlight's the brightest.
Or when it gets super, super physical, right? Like Brad Stevens' teams, you go back to Butler and on to the Celtics, like that thing gets physical, he wants no part of it, right? Like he likes it when it's tightly officiated. No one gets a friendlier whistle in the regular season going to the bucket than James Harden. All of a sudden, things get cranked up and they got 2 refs and they're letting him play a little bit and he's like, whoa, 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 this is not my style. Like, look, he imploded. Those are basic plays. This is... anyone who's ever played AAU basketball, and he played a ton, played a couple tournaments for my dad. Like the first thing you have to be able to do is break a press. And in order to break a press, you got to get open. And you got to know how to get open without pushing off. Somebody puts their hands on you, you smack their hands off. But you can't extend your arm, let alone right in front of Tony Brothers. There could have been one official on that court. He was standing right there. So, but this is, I wish I was surprised by it, but I'm not. What, Chris Paul was hurt? Of course Chris Paul was hurt. What, they imploded when the thing got physical? Of course they imploded when the thing got physical. This is D'Antoni 101, and this has been who James Harden has been to this point in his career.
Wait, that's the key point in how I look at James Harden. I don't fantasize about who he can be. I look at who he is. He's not a point guard, so he's been thrown in that position. At point guard position, and you played it, Doug, you got to make critical decisions without thinking on the snap, okay? James Harden is not built like that. James Harden is a scorer. He gets to the basket. Can he make his teammates better? Yes, we proved that. But critical decision in the last 2 minutes of the game is not his forte. That's why you bring in a Chris Paul, to be able to calm the presence. Okay, now you're looking for foul. Even before that, I think it was a foul that wasn't called when he went to the basket on Horford. And I think it was Tony Brothers that was under the basket. So don't think that it wasn't a back and forth, going on between the two that led to the fact of where they're at. And to your point even more, you have a 29-point lead. What about the defense totally from Houston? Okay, so decision-making or lack thereof from James Harden, but also we see D'Antoni, once again, late-game situations, not defensively locking in, giving up layups, and you come back and win.
Man, this is very critical of James Harden.
I love James Harden.
I like James Harden's game,
but I know where he's at as a player. I'm not expecting him to be this certain time of play. I know
where
who
were
he
we
is.
last week when he put up back-to-back 51-point games?
Listen,
Okay.
you're missing the point.
Hold on, when he outdueled Russell Westbrook last year in the first round of the playoffs,
point.
and they knocked OKC out. I will agree there is something to the end of the game, and Doug, you made a great point about the physicality. He's a jump shooter, right? They said the same thing about Steph Curry. He doesn't like the contact. Rough him up. Be physical with him. But overall, I just can't read too much into a December game against the second-best defensive team in the NBA, against a flopper like Marcus Smart, and freak out and say he's not clutch or
He gave up 26 points.
It was a bad half. I mean, he was 15 for 15 from the line. Okay, they're going through a rough stretch here, 4 straight losses.
What you're missing is I'm talking about decision making. Forget whether you win or lose the game. I'm talking about decision making.
Last night was not his best.
That's going to be critical in December all the way through the playoffs.
So you're just saying ultimately he's not a clutch player?
I didn't say that. I said decision maker.
No, look, if you can't see the problem, look, they just got beat by Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City did the same thing
and
to
the
them,
Lakers
right?
and the Clippers.
The word is kind of out that you can rough him up, and everybody knows he's not going to get those calls in the postseason. But you brought in Chris Paul. Like, that's not fixing the problem. That's taking some of the problem away from him and hoping Chris Paul can solve the problem. They've done the same thing with the coaching staff. Jeff Bizdelic does the defense. Mike D'Antoni doesn't. And teams, no matter what the assistant coach says, unless the head coach really means it, and unless the head coach is completely invested in defense becoming important. And oh yeah, by the way, the plays that they ran simply to get the ball in bounds weren't good enough.
I would agree.
D'Antoni's level of detail in his coaching has always been missing. He's more interested in spacing and just get the ball to my best player and have the guys and read the defense. That's great, but
champion like a European style.
Well, that's where he comes from. That's his background. And I played for him in Phoenix. And I knew when I went to Phoenix early on, we're in the film session, I said, there's no way we're going to beat San Antonio in 7 games. Because he doesn't, the attention to detail, correcting the errors in midseason. If we don't do that now, when we play San Antonio in 7 games, we can't beat them.
All right, welcome back to the show. Doug Gottlieb and Bucky Brooks are back. We're joined now by Fox College football analyst Joel Klatt. Let's move to Baker Mayfield, who has failed to appear before the media in the lead-up to Monday's playoff game because he is sick, but still found time to get into it with our buddy Mark Schlereth over Twitter. After Schlereth questioned Mayfield's NFL future, an angry Oklahoma fan defended the quarterback by bringing up the Heisman, to which Schlereth replied, quote, "The Heisman, please. That's a garbage award. Who was the last Heisman quarterback to be worth a crap in the NFL? Get lost, OU fanboy. That's when Baker chimed in, tweeted at Schlereth, you got it, big fella. At least tag me in all your stuff. Listen, I love Mark Schlereth. I consider him a friend, great family. I side with Baker Mayfield here in terms of why can't we be happy that a guy's a great college player? Why do we then have to go, oh, my God, he's not the greatest pro prospects, and so that diminishes everything he did in college? I don't think that it does. This kid is a great college player. His emotion and all that works in the college game. You bring that emotional immaturity to the NFL, and it won't work. And we get it. We see it with Jameis Winston. I think we've seen it from Cam Newton. But in the college game, his emotion, his arrogance, it works, and his style of play. I know Mark's got all his stats about how many underneath routes and bubble screens and all that other stuff. That's what they do in the college game. I say celebrate the kid for being a college player. And as soon as these playoff games are over, then we'll talk about the NFL.
Yeah, listen, I love Mark as well. He's a great family friend. And I think he's dead wrong. The Heisman is not a garbage award. In fact, it's the second best individual honor you can earn in the sport at any level. Let me tell you what never goes away, the term Heisman Trophy winner. That is a prestigious award. The only thing you can do as an individual in this sport that's better than winning the Heisman Trophy is put on the gold blazer and go to the Hall of Fame. That's the only thing.
Very much.
That's the only thing. So this award is as prestigious as it's always been. It's not garbage. It hasn't lost its luster. And Mark, you're wrong. I'll tell you about it next Thanksgiving. The other part of this, and this is where I think you're wrong, he's not just a good college player. This guy's got some attributes that are going to translate into the National Football League. Namely, he's got great arm talent. This guy puts the ball into tight windows. He's got great feet, and his arm is stronger than you would think. And I think that's what's different than some of these spread quarterbacks that have come out in the past.
Well, let's start with the college and with the so-called garbage award, right? Like, look, Ndamukong Suh should have won it. I think there have been times in which there are better players than the guy who wins it. And I think that maybe
like the NBA MVP.
Part of it, right? And part of it is that there have been a lot of failures that are college quarterbacks that haven't achieved. But let's put it into proper context. He walked on to not one but two Big 12 programs and won the starting job at both. He has not lost a road game at Oklahoma.
That's incredible.
Let me go back. He has not lost a road. Hardest thing to do in sports is win on the road. He has not lost a road game. And oh yeah, by the way, it's like, oh, who they play? They beat Ohio State in the shoe.
Yeah.
Then they wouldn't beat Oklahoma State. Like, we'll beat anybody anywhere. I love him. And I would also disagree with you in terms of the moxie and attitude and carrying he doesn't carry a chip on his shoulder. There's a bag of chips on his shoulder. That's Aaron Rodgers-like, really. I mean, you ever talk and be around Aaron Rodgers? Like, yes, there's some theatrics to it that Aaron Rodgers doesn't do, but there's some stuff that Aaron Rodgers does do. He does put on the belt. He does act like it's him against the world. I don't know if he makes it, but I don't think that it's as big a hindrance because he's beloved in that locker room. Those guys would kill for him, and that's what that position's about more than anything else.
I think he is going to be the most fascinating evaluation during the run-up to the draft.
Yeah.
Because when I talk to people, I get comparisons from Drew Brees to Russell Wilson to Case Keenum. He is all over the board when you talk about what is Baker Mayfield going to be at the next level. The thing that you like about him are the things that people will ding him for. He's emotional. He cares about it. He loves it. He's feisty. Can he rein some of that stuff in? I think if he reins it in, it changes the player. I think the big thing that we have to appreciate in the collegiate level, he has an opportunity in 2 games to really shut everybody up and put it on display. In the pro game, you have to figure out, can he play like Drew Brees? Meaning, can he find the passing lanes? Can he do those things? Because athletically, he's not as athletic as Russell Wilson, so he is going to have to be a flamethrower from the pocket to be able to get it done.
You know what's interesting for me, Bucky, is that evaluation. Technically, there's enough film on him to evaluate him, right? So these 2 games become about the fact is like, can he do it? Can he put the team on his back and win a championship? I think more than anybody else, maybe in the last couple of years in the playoff system, we're seeing a guy play for his draft stock as well. If he wins a national championship, I think there's a really good chance he goes in the top 15 picks in April's NFL draft.
Listen, I want to clarify my position. Great college player. I haven't.
Well, I thought you were kind of insinuating that it wasn't going to translate.
Great college player. I haven't really evaluated him in my own mind. Not that I'm some great evaluator, as it relates to his pro future.
Okay.
I really haven't. I've heard people push back against him and credit all the bubble screens and all this, and it doesn't translate to the NFL. I've heard that, but again, they have a right to those opinions. But I'm just like, hey, let's don't diminish what he's done here in college. And again, the Heisman Trophy, just like you said, I hadn't thought of that. Other than the Hall of Fame, there's nothing better. You're absolutely right. His record against and what he's as a walk-on in 2 different places. Let's just celebrate that. And again, in terms of, the cocky, you compared to Aaron Rodgers, I see he reminds me more of Johnny Manziel.
Right.
And Manziel flamed out in the NFL. I'm not suggesting that with him. I love this kid as a college player, but I just want everybody to understand, when you're on top and he's winning, you're going to get nitpicked.
Absolutely.
Sure.
You are going, and again, Bucky, and I'm sure you've heard, everybody's heard it. Sometimes when this happens to a Lamar Jackson or a Jameis Winston, it's racial, it's racial. No. If you win the Heisman, if you're supposed to be a first-round draft pick, it doesn't matter what color you are. There will be a Mark Schlereth, a Jason Whitlock, someone's going to question you.
I think the reason that I brought up Aaron Rodgers, and I know you're going to bring up Manziel, a lot of people bring up Manziel, same part of the country, and some of the same characteristics on the football field.
Have both been arrested, I believe.
They have, but the difference is the people I know in Norman's like, this guy's a baller, okay? This guy is a film room guy. This guy is totally bought in. He's about the team. The guys love him, whereas when I asked the same people when Manziel was at Texas A&M, they're like, party kid, about himself, not a leader. Great. When you snap the football, he'll make plays, but the level of preparedness isn't necessarily there, and I think that's the difference.